I'm Kirk Hanson, Executive Director of the Markkula Center for Applied Ethics at Santa Clara University. And we have a guest today, Dan Siciliano, who is the director of the Rock Center on Corporate Governance at the Stanford Law School. And we've been talking about a new kind of duty of care, a new kind of concern about whether individuals who are involved in decision-making really are doing their ethical duty for their organizations or for those that they are responsible to. And this is the question of, are you distracted from those duties by the use of technology? So you're concerned, you've recently been doing research on whether I look at my BlackBerry, that might actually not cause me not to fulfill my ethical obligation to a board of directors or some other.
Yeah, believe it or not, I think that may be one of the conclusions. I'm lucky enough to be at Stanford where all sorts of real hard science research goes on, so I can look to my colleagues and peers and borrow from their hard work. And the work of Clifford Nass recently in understanding better whether or not there is such a thing as a super multitasker, someone who can do lots of things at one time and really no balls get dropped. There's no decrease in their effectiveness. He went about looking for that person by constructing some really clever tests. And it turns out after a lot of analysis and quite a bit of scientific rigor that really the idea of multitasking is more or less a myth. And so those of us who look like we're multitasking, we're doing some other clever neurological things. We're switching quickly and so on and so forth. But yes, when we do one thing and need to give our attention to something else, we are distracting ourselves from the something else. And depending on what that is, let's take an extreme example. You're on a board of directors of a publicly traded company. You're about to make a really tough decision. If you are arguably severely distracted looking at that BlackBerry under your desk or under that table, and you're distracted enough that you aren't really engaged, and we can now kind of scientifically show that you're probably not able to be truly engaged, then the mistakes you make might not fall under what is a commonly followed principle, an important one, of what we call the business judgment rule, which essentially says you're allowed to make mistakes. That's okay, but you have to have engaged in certain, a certain amount of care and a certain amount of loyalty. So it turns out that arguably there may be a chink in that armor if you were so persistently distracted that really it constitutes bad faith. And though we haven't really defined it, you and I can probably arrive at what bad faith is.
But we all do multiple things. I take notes in board meetings.
Yep.
And I sense I'm distracted when I'm writing what was said 5 seconds ago and somebody's saying something more. And I read the minutes from the last meeting, or I look ahead at the PowerPoint presentation that I have a copy of.
Right.
Aren't those all distractions that fall into the same category?
No, absolutely. So I think there's a little bit of judgment that goes into this, and none of this is really law yet. I mean, it's certainly not law that's been passed, and it's only just maybe hints of it are starting to emerge. So we're speculating, but let me speculate this way. It seems that a reasonable person is going to be able to draw a line. And the what you just described probably all falls on the good side of that line. Those are all things that you're doing really to enhance your performance in that meeting. You're taking notes to be a better board member. You're looking at other things about the board meeting. Maybe you're looking ahead. That's the only one that maybe pushes the envelope, but I don't think people are going to pick on you relative to your neighbor who frankly is checking emails about their very demanding job, but nothing about that board meeting, and misses the nuance and discussion about the tough decision about to be made, because frankly, even though they can nod at the right moments, because as it turns out, they're kind of mimicking your nodding, and even though they think to themselves, well, this other board member over there, they pay good attention to stuff, it'll be fine, they are distracted. And arguably they're distracted enough to really be the same as if they were taking a nap right there in the board meeting. And that's going to be the debate that I think emerges, is being that distracted the same as paying no attention at all?
So we're going to
have a problem.
So we're going to move from the train engineer who was texting and had the accident in Southern California and is liable because of that, to the person driving their car who's texting or doing something else that totally distracts them and has an accident, again, that they're liable somehow. We're going to move even to meetings where my doing a message, a text message or whatever, may represent negligence.
Let me discuss a little bit the ethics side of that, which is, I think, easier and ironically, this isn't often true, it's clearer than the legal line in a way, right? So the reason you cited the examples of the train engineer, the person driving, let me throw out a couple of others that are almost silly. The neurosurgeon during surgery, the orthodontist working on your kid's teeth in real time, and the bus driver. The reason those are easy, and we say, that's absurd, that person should not be texting, they shouldn't be reading emails, is because they are not attenuated, meaning the mistake you make manifests really fast. And then you have this sense of, look, that person's distraction caused this terrible thing. We have an understanding of that. So the ethical dilemma here is that we don't have that same reaction, though I would suggest often we should, when the connection is more attenuated. So if I make very bad decisions today in my job, whatever it might be, even not just a board meeting, or I give B- performance because I was distracted all day with other things and didn't ever focus, and months down the road, bad things happen, that's probably no less serious as a practical matter than the bus driver who, no one gets hurt, but smashes into a car because they were texting, and so causes property damage. It's just that we don't feel it the same way. So the ethical side of this, I think, is one of visceral reaction, and we should school ourselves in thinking about, is what I'm doing now hurting something farther down the road, and should I think about that? The legal one's harder. I think there's no clarity about what the line will be, but sometime in the future, someone will test that line, and something's going to cross it, and you will have legal repercussions. But I'm much more concerned about the ethics side of it first, frankly.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention today.
You're very welcome.
Good.